Hey, Nicole.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
I'm
Good.
back in
Are you
Connecticut
home?
right
Back in
now.
Connecticut right now. Oh,
Yes, I
okay.
have Mondays
Yes, I
off,
have Mondays
thankfully.
off, thankfully. Nice. Nice,
Yeah.
nice, nice. Yeah. Good. So, where in Connecticut again?
Madison, a little
Madison, a
town about
little town
20
about
minutes north of New
20 minutes north
Haven.
of New Haven. Got it. Hi, Jill. How are you? Good morning. Good morning, Hillary.
Hello.
Hello. It's good to see everybody. Yay. Wait just a couple minutes because sometimes people come on late. So, did good morning, Connie.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Did anybody do anything this weekend for Halloween, or are like people officially doing Halloween stuff on Halloween on Tuesday?
Bah humbug.
Bah humbug. Halloween's my favorite holiday.
I
I can
carved
really.
a
Good
pumpkin
morning,
on
Andrea.
Saturday
Pumpkin
with
on
friends.
Saturday with friends. Good morning, Andrea. Good morning. Good morning. Wow, so that's cool. Very cool. Well, we'll get started because so many of you are here. So that's exciting. The only thing I ask is that you can absolutely jump in with questions and feel free to post something in the chat while I'm talking. But if we can just stay on mute because I know sometimes there's feedback, etc. So, welcome to our empowerment talk today. We are going to talk about the relationship or the Ayurveda of money. So I'm going to ask each of you to respond into the chat if you stress about money. A simple yes or no is fine. And after you type in your yes or no, if you can put a dash next to it and identify the emotion that comes up as a result. So I just want to get an idea of where folks are with their. Okay, so Andrea says yes, and there's fear. Connie, yes, stress and avoidance. Nicole, yes, somewhat, but conflicted. Okay, cool. Very cool. Hillary, yes, annoyance and anger. Gotcha. Makes sense. This is great. Thank you, friends. Appreciate it. Um, so we're gonna examine the idea of money from an elemental standpoint, and then we're going to move into the doshas, and then we're going to move into the gunas, and then we're going to move into what I've identified as the three F's: fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, so it's kind of an interesting way to break down the idea of money. So from an elemental standpoint, let's look at the five elements, and I'll type this stuff into the chat as well. From an earth perspective, earth represents you have a solid foundation financially. Okay, and you have a solid structure, and that may be currently existing, or you're building towards something, etc. Water and money is money in our life ebbs and flows. So money comes in, money comes out. Sometimes we feel like we're ahead. Sometimes we feel like we're behind. So just depends on the season, the time, and where you are in your life. From a fire perspective, money transforms in quantity and lifestyle. So maybe over the course of your life, you've had a significant amount of money, or you haven't had a lot, and as a result, your lifestyle transforms. So sometimes you might, at one point in time, you might have lived in a smaller home, and then you might have then accumulated money and moved into a larger home. And I'm just using that as an example. Air. Air is money does not last, or it moves in and out rapidly. And then finally, ether. Money does not move or it stands still. And what that means is that you may have money and you don't want to spend it. It doesn't want to be used for something. So in the chat, identify which of these 5 elements you feel like is your current situation. I'm just curious. Or that you identify with the most. And I know I have a couple of typos in there typing fast. So. Do you feel like you're on a solid foundation? Do you feel like right now money's kind of ebbing and flowing? Yep, Nicole says water or air. Okay, so we've got some ebb and flow, and we have it moves in and out rapidly. Gotcha, okay. Jill, all about the water. Gotcha, ebbs and flows. Sure, wonderful. Hillary, water, in and out. Yep. Andrea, ebbs and flows. And Connie, fire and air. Yep. So it transforms, and then also there's it doesn't last very long, etc. Absolutely. I think also some of these elements can also be depending on where you are in your life. Are you in your own business and an entrepreneur, or do you have a job that you work for an organization where there's a quote unquote, regular, steady, ebb and flow of money? So you can also consider those things as well. So then from a doshic standpoint, so I want you to think about where your dosha is primarily. Vata people, and I also know that all of us are a combination of 2 or more. We have all the doshas inside of us, but what are the ones that we resonate with the most? And that also tends to be our tendencies towards using or having money in our life. So Vata people tend to earn money quickly, but also spend it quickly. So they earn it quickly and spend it quickly. Thus, they have a difficult time with feeling financially stable. So difficulty in feeling financially stable. There we go. Pitta people appreciate material prosperity, and they tend to be moderately well off financially, but they spend purposefully. Okay, so Pitta people, or Pitta, those that have Pitta tendencies, appreciate material prosperity, and they tend to be moderately well, moderately well off. They spend money purposely. And then finally, Kapha people. Kapha people tend to earn money and are good at holding on to it. They can also hoard it as well and have a fear of spending it. So, it's kind of like I think my dad is a very Kapha person. He just, I have it and I don't want to spend it. And like my mom always used to say something funny. She's like, your father has his Holy Communion money. Like that's how he's just like, he's never spending that thing. So Kapha people tend to earn money and are good at holding onto it. They can hoard it as well and have a fear of spending. So, which do you resonate with? Do you resonate with the you get it quickly, but you spend it quickly and feel financially unstable at times or difficulty feeling stable? Or do you appreciate material prosperity, you money kind of comes to you pretty well, but you spend it purposefully. Or I got it, it ain't moving. I'm holding on to it. Don't touch it, and don't ask me for anything. I want to have a massive savings account. So type in the chat which one you resonate with. Connie, Vata, gotcha. Comes in and goes. Let's see who else. Nicole, Pitta, though it used to feel like Kappa. Okay. Jill, I don't have a lot of it, but Pitta. Okay, good. Spend it purposely. Constant, daughter of Kappa, ex-wife of Pitta. And that's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask, in addition to you chiming in about where you land with all of this from a doshic tendency, if you are in a partnership, whether it's a business partnership or a personal partnership, where does your partner fall on this? And is it compatible? And if you want to come off mic and share that, you're welcome to do that as well. So.
I think part of where
Connie.
money comes from both my dad and my ex-husband.
Gotcha.
Yeah, they've instilled a great deal of fear and stress when it comes to money. But my mom, a Vata, and she's funny because she let my dad know when he dies. She's going to write a check. She's going to balance this account and put it in his grave.
Because you can take it with you.
There you go.
There you go. I gotcha. Nicole, you're shaking your head. Where are you landing on this? Thanks, Connie. That's funny.
I'm thinking I'm probably like my parents in the Pitta level here, and my partner. We never really had to discuss how we spent money. We're generally on the same page.
It's great. That's really fortunate.
I think I got lucky there.
Yeah. That's really great, because it's usually like the most stressful thing in a relationship. One of those things that has to do with when you come together with somebody, where that lands. So yeah, that's wonderful. Congratulations. Hillary, I see it's all and changes depending on what's happening in your life. I could not agree more. And I think all of us can relate to that, that sometimes it's, comes quickly, it goes quickly. Sometimes, we have prosperity, and then sometimes it's like, oh, I'm going to hold on to it, etc. And I think also we have to take into consideration not only our tendencies and maybe, a business partner or somebody that we have a personal relationship with, that we're in relationship with as it relates to money, but we also need to take into consideration what's going on in the world. Right now we can say, I think with confidence, that we are living in a both Vata and Kapha imbalanced state. We have people who are quote unquote in power, that are hoarding and are not spending and don't want anybody else to have it. And then the rest of us citizens that are living our lives, or trying to live our lives, we see money getting earned and spent very, very quickly, because we have things, like inflation. It was really interesting the other day. There was a gentleman, a young person on Instagram, who was debunking this whole idea that, costs for things have only gone up 7 or 8%, as the government is saying that. And he actually had before and after pictures of his trip at Costco as an example. And he went to the aisle and saw that, like, at one point he can get a big jar of mayonnaise for $4.99, and how now it's $9.99. And he's like, no, it's like a 50 to 60% increase, etc. So the doshic tide, the doshic state of dis-ease will fluctuate also based on the outside environment. Because remember, all of the doshas and all of the elements exist inside of us. So those things are constantly interacting, regardless of where your primary doshic constitution is. And then that's getting influenced by the outside. In addition to the elements that make us up and our doshic tendencies and the doshic tendencies of the people that are close to us, because those things constantly bump up against one another as it relates to finances, is what is known as the gunas. So our gunic tendencies with money, whether it is sattvic, rajasic, or tamasic. So as it relates to sattva and money, it is a positive use of money. When we have a sattvic tendency, we tend to invest in humanitarian causes, and the use of money is to bring peace and balance. And the use of money is to bring peace and balance. So we have the sattvic use of money. So I'm sure all of us can identify in our lives that it was like, okay, I want to use this in a constructive fashion. Maybe you're using it to fund your child going to summer camp or sending them to college. But it is something that is for the development of someone, an individual or society. A lot of parents start to save money for their children's future, to take care of them. And I know Nicole with a new child, and Hillary has young children, and so does Jill. That's something that you think about and do on a regular basis. When we look at rajas, or the rajasic use of money, this is when money it's controlling use of money that is also very selfish. We can use money to manipulate people or circumstances to get what it is that we want. So there may be times in your lives where we're like, well, we use it for selfish means, whether that is I'm not concerned of paying the bills or allowing my whole family to feel supportive, and I'm just going to spend this on myself. And I'm sure at some point in time, all of us have probably experienced that. But in addition, we see this in society today, that money can be used to manipulate people or circumstances so people can get what it is that they want. So a rajasic use of money is the controlling use of money and manipulating it to get what we want. It's very selfish in nature. And as I'm going through this, some of this might resonate with each of you in terms of like how you were raised. Sometimes our families, it was like, there was the sattvic use of money where everybody shared, and it was positive, and didn't have this negative spin. And then there might have been like, well, it was used to punish, or if you didn't do this, you didn't receive an allowance, or whatever the case may be. So those are also things to take into consideration as well. And then when we look at tamas, or the tamasic use of money, sort of that heavy, ignorant use, it is a negative use of money. And this is where we invest in things that are destructive in nature. And that can be things like gambling, or we use it to fuel an alcohol problem, or drugs, or something that is not going to bring benefit to ourselves, or overeating or online shopping when we know that we shouldn't be doing that, but we're doing it because we're trying to fill some sort of void and think that the material use of money is going to allow us to feel better. So would love your feedback on this. In general, do you feel that you have a sattvic use of money, a rajasic use of money, or tamasic use of money? And it doesn't necessarily have to be you personally, or have you experienced any of these things either currently in your life or in your past as a child?
I was just thinking it refreshing perspective. How people spend. Um, without friends. Travel, like very close friends. The few disruptions we had with small events and major ones too. Was stemmed from very different perspectives. Someone who hoarded it, and someone who was a bit disruptive with how they spent it.
Mm-hmm.
It affected, as someone who's lived with many people over the past 15 years, it affected a number of people a few times.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole. And so Jill says, Sattva is a beautiful goal. Yes, Jill, it really is. And one of the things that we have to take into consideration when we're thinking about the Ayurveda of money is the idea that money is an energy. If we really look back on money's history, and right now we have, fiat money. It's not even based on the gold standard anymore. So there's pros and cons to that. The pros is that we could actually change the current financial system like that because it's not based on the gold standard. But if we look at it from a historical standpoint and an energetic standpoint, because we're all energy, energy exists inside of us from the elements to the doshas to the gunas. And way back in the day, we had, it was just coins. It was actually not even coins. It was metal substances, mineral substances that were exchanged, that were used as a way in which to, I need this service or I need this product, so I'm giving you this thing that represents something. And over the course of time, over several thousands of years, and in this country still very modernly, over hundreds of years, it has turned into something that has such a powerful energy, such a powerful Shakti. And the reality is that, yes, Sattva is a very positive, beautiful goal. I agree with you on that, Jill. And we can have that. It just depends on, the choices it is that we make and the emotions that wrap around that. We often will look at something like $100 bill and put so much energy, so much Shakti into that as if it was life itself. So the only value that it has is the value it is that we have chosen as humans and as a society to put on it. The reality is that it is really, it's almost imaginary. It's almost fake. And I would actually recommend, I'm going to put in here for those of you that are interested in that kind of orientation. There is a documentary called Requiem for the American Dream. And Noam Chomsky is the one that does it. I don't know if anybody knows Noam Chomsky, but he's a philosopher from MIT and very, very well read, a phenomenal lecturer, et cetera. And he did this documentary called The Requiem for the American Dream. It talks about just this orientation of money as energy, but what it has done to society. And Connie, I love, my daily goal is to become more sattva. When times or feast or famine, I can have rajasic tendencies. Absolutely. And during a divorce, I was guilty of tamas to escape the trauma, 1,000%. And so I appreciate that. It's actually beautifully outlined, Connie. Thank you for that, because it goes through all of those gunic tendencies that all of us have probably on a daily, if not weekly basis, of where things go and the energy it is that we put towards money. Remember, the word guna means quality. What is the quality it is that we give money? Do we give it something that's positive, that is like, wow, if I have this thing and it's not mine, and it is not, and it doesn't represent anything about me, and I can use that as a vehicle by which to enhance my life? Or is this something that I'm afraid of, that has so much power that I don't know how to deal with it, et cetera, and it brings me anger and frustration and confusion and all of those things? Or this thing, I'm so afraid that I won't have enough of it, that I've got to hoard it and hold on to it because I'm afraid that it's going to disappear. what's really interesting about looking at money from an elemental, doshic, and a gunic perspective is that it gives us information about, do you have money or does money have you? And what is our tendencies in our lives as a result? Because, do we place a value of self or other depending on whether or not there is an abundance of money or not? And it also gives us the opportunity to examine how we look at abundance. A lot of folks feel that like abundance is just something, depends on how many commas you have in your checking account or your savings account, etc. But at the same time, if we really think about and understand that a lot of it is just not particularly real, the reality is that we are all going to die. And we're not going to bring this stuff with us. But yet we put so much emphasis and so much value on it. Which leads me to talking about this final quarter about the 3 F's of money. And this is always very, very interesting. So the first one is money is flight. Okay, so we've got flight, fight, and freeze as it relates to money. So with flight, money is not something to be discussed. Like, oh, when the topic comes up, it makes me prickly. I don't want to talk about it. It causes a tremendous amount of disease, and therefore I avoid the subject and pretend that it doesn't exist. So no conversation about money. It's uncomfortable, and I want nothing to do with it. So there's a flight tendency around that, like, ugh, it's not a topic that makes me feel comfortable. And in a lot of ways, it is also, if people have a flight tendency towards money, they also have no idea how money is being spent in their household, and they put that responsibility on somebody else in the family. I'll give an example of my own family. My mom knows where every single penny is. My dad, not a clue. And literally, we've said this before in my family 100 times. If my mom dies first, my dad is fucked because he has absolutely no idea where it is. And what's interesting is that my dad, also being very kapha in orientation, was very good at working and saving money, and didn't really need. Was not a spender by any stretch of the imagination. So it wasn't like he didn't have the ability to make money, and he knew the value it had for himself and his family. But in talking about it, wants nothing to do with it. So we have flight responses. Then we have fight responses as it relates to money. And the fight response is money is a difficult topic, and the relationship with it is rocky, where it can be seen as both pleasurable and painful. And we have up and down emotions that can seem like a constant struggle. So the fight tendency is up and down emotions about it. We struggle to understand and land happily with it. And it's a difficult topic that is both pleasurable and painful, depending on where we are. So it's like, I'm not flying from it. I'm confronting the issue, but and I want to have a relationship with money, but there's this tendency that it's something that is difficult. It's a very difficult energy to embrace. And then finally, freeze. This is where money can actually render somebody paralyzed, whether they have it or they don't have it. It's something that brings up deep emotions that can make people feel really stuck. So deep emotions that make people feel stuck, and money renders one paralyzed, whether they have it or not. So depending on your doshic tendency, the value or the qualities through the gunas, the value that you put on money, you can fall into one of these three categories. Is money a flight response, a fight response, or a freeze response? I want nothing to do with it. Let's not talk about it. Yes, we can talk about it, but there's a bit of an antagonism around it. And I have up and down emotions about it. Or, oh my God, I have no idea how to even talk about this or even how to deal with it, because it's overwhelming. Thoughts? Where do people land? Jill's like, number 2. Got it. Gotcha, Jill. Lately, number 2. Gotcha, Nicole. Connie, all of it. Amen, sister. Like, I'm with you. It depends. And so, Nicole, you used to freeze when you had very little. Sure, absolutely. And, we have to remember also that money brings up a lot of samskaric things in our lives, and it depends on where, how we came into the world. Sometimes if we come into, and I'll use the Buddha as an example. The Buddha actually came into the world as a prince with a ton of money. And when he decided to go on his spiritual quest, he left all that behind and was like, yep, don't need it, etc. And so sometimes people who come into the world, into a family that it has abundance in the money perspective, because abundance is seen in all different ways, the value of it is very little for them. It's like, it's whatever. Whereas if somebody comes into a family that has scarcity or a scarcity mindset around money, that, oh my God, it's going to run out, we might not ever have enough, etc., there's going to be an orientation towards that as well, where there might be that freeze or that flight response because I don't know how to handle it. I'm afraid that it's going to disappear. So Andrea, she's all over the place with it. Okay, very fair. And Carla, I'm currently at 2 or 3, depending on the topic. Gotcha. So when you say depending on the topic, Carla, what does that mean? I'm curious.
It can be fun to talk about if it's planning.
If it's planning what? I can hear you. You're doing great.
Trips, things like that. But then like the day-to-day paying bills, that kind of stuff is where I freeze up. It's not fun,
Always paying bills, right? So, and also depending on the people who are in your household, depending on where it is that they have landed with all of this, did they come from a scarcity model? Did they come from an abundance model? Did they come from a diligence model where it was, we have money, we don't have a ton of it, but we have enough to be comfortable, and we choose it wisely, et cetera, kind of that middle way. So, there is an Ayurveda, there is a study, a knowledge around money. And what's really interesting is that, and it can also change over time. I think that as we look at the stages of our lives, from 0 to 25, we really don't have much of a clue. I look at my nephews right now, and my niece, who think literally that it just kind of grows on trees, that like, dad just, my brother just provides, that, oh, they're going to have a cell phone, and that if they need a new pair of sneakers, they can, or if they need a ride someplace, they just, use his card to get an Uber, like it's fascinating. Like there's just no connection, where as when I was a child, my my parents, as soon as I was able to like babysit as a young person, it was like we opened up a savings account, and my mom would be like, okay, if you make money, you put a certain portion in here, et cetera. And like, this was back in the day when you had the little checkbook register, and you marked down all of your money, et cetera. So there was a routine that was associated with it. Because I also think that, like, growing up as a Gen Xer, I had more physical contact with money. It was like when I babysat, it was like, here's $10, and so like you physically saw it, and there was an energy. Where now it's like, I was at Whole Foods yesterday, and I noticed this a while back, but like people who now use a hand scanner to pay for their groceries at the checkout, it's like, that is fucking frightening. Like, and what it does is that it reinforces that kind of, air quality, that vata quality of just like, up, and there it goes kind of thing, versus like, do I really need to buy this particular thing? Is this a want, or is this a need kind of thing? Whereas you have a little bit more of that as it relates to a tangible, tactile association with something energetic, such as money. So it's very interesting. And then I think that when we get into the years that we're quote unquote our pitta years, from like 25 to 50, where we're working, and we're realizing like, oh wow, like I have to live on my own now, and I have to put gas in my car, and I have to put food on the table, and I have to pay rent, or I'm saving to buy a home, or I'm saving for a wedding, or I'm having a child, or whatever the case may be, or I'm going to grad school or going to college, that we have a different association with it, because there's a lot of change and transformation, and like physical things that are happening in our lives that require this energetic, known as money. So I think that we have more contact with it. And then I think that after we get to like 65 and above, in that vata time, we see money kind of go out a little bit, because it doesn't have as much value. We don't have as many needs as we get older. If we're retired, and if we've had children, our children are on their own now. It's not something that we have to worry about taking care of them. And we have more space in our lives. It was always great going to, grandma and grandpa's house when I was a child, because like my granddad would be like, oh, here's $20. And it was like, oh my God, I didn't even do anything, and he just gave me $20, because they just have more of that time and space. If they're at that stage in their life, and they've done all of that pitta work, that in the vata stage of life, we start to come to this mental space and energetic space of understanding that, like, you can't take it with you, and it really, it doesn't matter. And it's actually more interesting when we share it. So any thoughts or questions about any of this? Interesting, not interesting? So. Would love your feedback or thoughts before we get you going on this Monday morning and the day before Halloween. Okay. Thanks, Nicole. I'm glad you found it interesting. I think the largest takeaway from all of it is, Jill said, my therapist has been trying to teach me money is a tool. That's right, Jill. Thank you so much. I was just you beat me to it. I love it. We have to remember that money is something that it has an energy, it has a Shakti, and it is something that is a representation of an exchange of energy. That's it. So we show appreciation for people who provide services, whether it's the farmer that's growing your food, whether it is the teacher that's teaching you a foreign language, whether it is the coach that is assisting you in a sport, whatever the case may be, it is a representation, but it doesn't make us who we are. So, but understanding, what our tendencies are, not only what our tendencies are on the day to day, but what are our tendencies as it relates to when things in life get difficult, versus when things in life are like, okay, everything's fine. So we're going to meet ups and downs, etc. What are our go-to responses as it relates to those things? And how does that affect the people around us? Knowing that, again, it really is just a representation and a tool of an energetic exchange, etc. If we didn't have this thing known as currency that was printed in various different metals or on paper, it would have been, well, Nicole, I have, strawberries and I would really like some of your corn. Can we exchange? That's what we did, back in the day. And if we look at traditional cultures, whether it's traditional Indian culture, or a great representation is traditional Native American culture, people who hoarded money were considered diseased. And that's the thing, because money is something that is supposed to be shared with the collective. And so if we look at that on a national basis, we're a pretty diseased culture. Yeah, thanks, Carla. I'm glad that you like the take on difficult subjects. I always like to look at topics that are enticing and things that can be really sort of quote hot button, and look at it from an Ayurvedic perspective. And I always use myself as the guinea pig, so to speak. It's like, okay, my natural tendency is pitta. What is my relationship as a result, and how does it affect those that are around me, etc. And Connie wrote, I feel like money is meant to enhance life. Yes, to be shared and to be utilized. I struggle with money rules my direction and feelings. It's just paper. It is. It really, really is. And it's very interesting. We, in our culture, we have such an emphasis on it, and yet we really don't see it. Whereas, that's it. No problem, Nicole. It's good to see you. Tell baby Evelyn I said hi. She's so adorable. I'm glad you like it, Hillary. Thank you. And nowadays there's less and less of a physical contact with it. Now it's just, you swipe your card, or you put your handprint in, or you punch in a code, or, things like that, where, there's all these zeros and ones floating around in the universe, and we don't see it. And then we have all of these increased rates for things that we're really not understanding why. Like, why is the interest rate at 8% now? And yes, okay, all of these accountants and financial people can give you, well, we print too much paper and it causes inflation. Yeah. And at the end of the day, none of it fucking makes any sense, and it's bullshit. And so bye, Andrea. I'm almost done anyway, so thank you for coming. But it's the less that we see it, also, the easier it is for it to be manipulated. So that's just something to think about. All right, gals, that's all I got for you today. Thank you so much. I'm so glad so many of you came on. It was so fun. I love all of you. And if you are celebrating Halloween, which is my favorite holiday, enjoy. If you have children, please do take pictures and share them in the group of your trick-or-treaters out there. And yes, allow your kids to trick-or-treat. It's a great thing. Definitely check their candy, but it is a great thing for them to enjoy. So you're welcome, Hillary. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody. Jai Bhagwan, go get them.